CATES Tutoring, the business, has been a part of our chapter for many, many years now. I don't remember quite when we met Chris at Jamian, but I know it's got to be, 8, 9, 10 years ago.
Something like that.
And Chris is brilliant, and we'll hear a little bit about Chris. He's a New York City born and raised guy who started a business, an education business, to help tutor and help those that were looking to do well in high school so that they were best positioned to get into the best colleges. And we've been very, very lucky to have a number of people who have been with CATES in different capacities, either as tutors themselves or salespeople. And now we're lucky enough to have the one of a kind and probably the best representation of CATES Tutoring in Geoff Hunt. So we're so lucky to have you, and I feel again lucky to be interviewing you here today. But I'm ashamed to admit that I don't think Geoff and I have ever had a formal one-to-one. We've had plenty of interactions, and I feel like I've known you because throughout the course of your time here, I've heard your stories and I've heard your 30-second business introductions, and I think you're incredible. But there are certain things that I want you to explain to us today that I don't know about. So my first question for Geoff is this. I want to get to know the Geoff before there was a Geoff in my life. Let me know where you were raised, what values your parents instilled in you around education, and what inspires you to make a life in education.
Well, thanks. I was raised in north of Boston, Massachusetts. We were talking about hauntings earlier. I was born in Salem, Massachusetts. As far as I know, I'm not a witch. But I grew up next door in a little town north of Boston. And my dad is an immigrant from England. He came via Canada, where he was a mining engineer. And so he came really to this country with very little other than an education. And that's sort of a big part of what I took from them. My dad did very well for himself, largely because he wound up going to Harvard for business school and worked super hard. And so that, if there was anything I took away from my folks, it's that. Plus, my folks' faith is very important to them. It's not to me, but their ethics, I think, transferred down to me, which is service to others. And so I've tried to marry those two things in my pursuits.
You don't think your dad's success had anything to do with the accent?
It very possibly, actually, yeah. There's this crazy study that shows that people perceive folks with an English accent with like 20 extra IQ points. I have not tried to put one on. It would be embarrassing, but yeah.
I'm sure you could do one.
It could help. Yeah.
Well, okay, so that makes a little bit more sense now. So take us through a little bit like your high school into college journey, where you went to school and then what you did after college, just before you made your way to CATES.
Sure.
Yeah.
So I hated high school. I was miserable. I wasn't inspired by my teachers.
Most geniuses are, by the way.
I'm not a genius, but thank you. Went to England for school for a little bit. Came back, majored in history and poli-sci. Worked in the book publishing industry for a while, for about 7 years. And then wound up deciding to go to graduate school here at Columbia Teachers College, and was a classroom teacher for 8 years at the Beacon School, which is still remains one of my most valuable education experiences, professional experiences. I left teaching because I fell in love with what's called experiential education, so leading students out into the field. I'd done that in New Orleans for a while, helping students rebuild the lower 9th Ward, and then worked for a series of nonprofits. And that's how I got to know CATES, because CATES works with a bunch of nonprofits to help either with my students to coach them for the SAT. We also continue to work with a whole bunch of other nonprofits, and that's kind of why, after I was sort of done with the nonprofit world, I made my transition to CATES, because I knew from being a client of CATES and asking so many questions and asking for more and more and more, and then they just never said no. And so I said, well, God, this is an amazing customer service, and given that I can continue working with a population that means a lot to me, I want to do that. And so that's how I found my way to CATES.
From my experience, and I may be totally wrong with this, and you'll clarify this for me, but it seems that sales and teachers are never a mix. Most teachers I know become violently ill from the thought of selling. What makes this type of work different from the other sales jobs, what other sales jobs entail, and why and how has this become a passion of yours?
I love this question. And the reason why I love this question is that any educator, any teacher, classroom teachers especially, who doesn't think that they're in the business of selling is fooling themselves. Educators have a responsibility to tell their students why they're learning this thing. Just like you, any of you as salespeople, why do I need this product, right? Anybody who's taught second semester seniors in the spring when they're ready to go out to Coney Island for the summer, if you're not selling them on why they should be in your classroom instead of at the beach, you're crazy. So I think for me, it was a sort of a natural progression. And I'm not selling dishwashers, right? I'm selling education, and there's a prime mover in economic advancement in this country. It's education. So I look at myself as not really selling as much as advising.
You've mentioned many fascinating strategies when it comes to being best prepared to get into colleges in the 21st century. What are some of the most important things you share with students and their parents as they embark on this journey?
Yeah, hard to distill it all down. I think that there's a lot of talk about the test optional movement, and I'm in favor of that. But at the same time, I think it's really important for people who are applying to highly competitive schools that optional doesn't really mean optional if you want to maximize your chances of getting in. So the SAT and the ACT are really, if you are shooting for top schools, they're not optional. And all the studies show the more you prepare for them, the better you do. The second thing is if you're not taking AP exams after you're taking AP courses, you're making a huge mistake, because those APs, number one, they can save you money by getting you credits. And number two, even schools that are not looking at the SATs or the ACTs will look at AP exam score reports, and they will use that to determine how strong a student you are. And so you can demonstrate whether or not you're Harvard, Yale, Skidmore, Columbia, wherever, material by taking those exams.
So this is off script a little bit, but so aside from the tutoring, there's a big component of CATES Tutoring, which is advisory and strategy consulting, right?
Yep.
So you're not necessarily just working with the students, but working with the parents as to how to best situate and determine what the best approach is to getting into the best schools. It sounds like.
Absolutely. We're starting to work with students as young. I mean, we're starting to work with kids pre-K, but as far as college strategy work, it really starts in 7th grade or 8th grade, because colleges start looking at your record in 9th grade. And it is, if they're deciding between somebody who's got all A's in senior year and another person who's got all A's in senior year, they're just gonna keep going down in a grade until 9th grade. And so if your grades aren't great in freshman year, you may be hurting your chances.
See, and I think that that's important for all of these people to know, because again, I don't want them limiting their search for you in terms of who they're looking to help by just limiting it to juniors and seniors in high school. This starts as early as pre-K and goes all the way through school. All right, good to know. What are some of the products and services that CATES is offering now that maybe we are not aware of that can help all of us think of ways of helping you and those we care about in this process?
Yeah, one of the things I really like about working with CATES is that that there's a lot of innovation. We're an innovation company, and the most recent thing is we've discovered, well, we haven't discovered, but somebody's discovered that there's this thing called learning loss. And over the summer, anywhere from 1 to 3 months of learning that's taken place during the school year is lost unless students continue learning over the summer. And so we are now working on helping students, again, as young as pre-K, to continue learning over the summer so that learning loss doesn't happen, so that they're set up for success for the following year. So, so yeah, we're starting to work with kids as young as pre-K.
That's awesome. Well, I must say your parents did a hell of a job with you.
Thanks. I'll be very happy to hear that.
And we're lucky to have you as a member of this group. And so I want to get one last thought from you as we conclude this interview as to whether or not you have words of wisdom or advice for who are now, many of us are parents, becoming parents, or someday becoming grandparents, that will help us position the children in our lives to have their best version of success.
Yeah. Single best piece of advice I can give is really listen to the child or adolescent. Whatever their passion is, reflect that back to them and help them pursue that passion. It doesn't matter whether it's video games, right? If it's video games, that can lead to storytelling, it can lead to coding, it can lead to art. It does not matter. Encourage your kids in whatever they want and find a way to make them useful. That's sort of our job as adults, is to transform what they're passionate about into something useful for their lives long term.
Do you believe that there's a difference between public school, charter school, and private school in the education of a child, and what are those differences?
Yeah, unfortunately the answer is it depends. When it comes to, for example, college prep stuff, it can matter in terms of what courses are being offered. It can matter, one of the things I would look at carefully is what is the ratio of college advisor to student. In the district in Manhattan, the average number of students that a college advisor or college counselor has is 600 students. There is no way they can do an adequate job. It's not their fault. It's not because they're training, it's just a numbers game. And so that's one of the things that I would look for in charter or public or even actually in some of the bigger private schools. But yeah, there's a difference, and that's sort of where we can be helpful. We also advise folks on where to go to high school and middle school. But if any of you have questions, by all means, come talk to me.
Geoff? Excellent job. Thank you.